It's the holidays, everybody. Happy holidays. And it's also the season of giving. The Grizzlies gave Gigi Jackson an opportunity, and he took advantage against the Utah Jazz. Should Gigi Jackson stay in the rotation? We're going to talk about that and much more coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I'm your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thanking you for tuning in to the Locked On Grizzlies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network in the land. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you go take advantage of that over at GameTime. Gigi Jackson took advantage of an opportunity against the Utah Jazz on yesterday. He started for the first time this season. He started because Cedric Coward, who had played 25 minutes in the last game, and we had talked about on the show, like it was strange how he went from playing over 30 minutes to the previous game, to going down to 25. Now I think we have more clarity on why, that was the case. So the Grizzlies decided to rest, or, Cedric Coward just wasn't able to play in this game due to a left heel injury. So we'll see, how that situation progresses going forward. But Cedric Coward being out and Vince Williams Jr. being out, and John Conchar being out, all of these injuries on the wing. Because remember, when we were talking to Tomas Isolo earlier this season about, why isn't Gigi playing? Why isn't Gigi getting an opportunity? And Olivier Maxence Prosper's getting an opportunity. Javon Small, when he was healthy, was getting an opportunity. Every other guy was getting an opportunity except Gigi. And earlier this season, Isolo's response to that basically was, we have injuries at point guard, so we need those guys. We have injuries in the front court, so we need Olivier Maxence Prosper. We have had depth on the wings. So the injuries, he basically said the injuries aren't at the positions that Gigi played. But now they are, because John Conchar's out. Vince Williams Jr. is out. And Cedric Coward missed this game, leading to Gigi Jackson to start against the Utah Jazz. The Grizzlies knocked off the Jazz with a strong win, 137-128. Gigi Jackson in this game, 18 points, 9 boards, and assists, 7-9 shooting from the field, 2 made three-pointers, 3 fouls, and also a block. A team high plus 12 and plus minus as well. This was a really good performance for Gigi Jackson. This was encouraging. 29 minutes played. If you've been following the Gigi Jackson journey this season, a lot of people would say this guy is extremely talented, right? Extremely talented, but he hasn't gotten much of an opportunity this season because of the injury situation, because of whatever else the case may be. But it was only a few weeks ago he asked the Grizzlies, he wasn't playing much, hey, can I go down to the G League? Let me get some reps. Let me get some, work on my game down there in South Haven. He did that, and he looked ready in this game. You could tell that this ain't a guy that's just been sitting on the pine, collecting wood. Connecting wood in his calf muscles. This is a guy that came to play. It was a strong performance, and it reminded me of something that we talked about with Gigi Jackson going back to the summer. And if you remember, in the summertime, there was this whole idea where Isolo and Gigi Jackson talked about how doing more with less was one of the keys to Gigi Jackson's game. That has kind of been an emphasis in, hey, you don't have to dribble the ball 7-8 times to get to your move to score the same 2 points. You could be more efficient with your movements. You could be quicker. You could be more decisive. It takes away the thinking process, what Tomas Isolo likes to call paralysis by analysis. It takes away that part of the game, and you just get out there and you just play. You play free flowing. And in this game, Gigi Jackson didn't have, a lot of dribble moves here, there, cross this guy to the right, cross this guy to the left. He had some strong moves now. Don't get me wrong. He had the little, little jig, little jag to his game. But overall, it was an efficient performance with not a lot of dribbles. The 2 3-pointers he made, there wasn't much of, sliding to the right, slide to the left, step back, none of that. Catch and shoot, make a quick decision, and knock down the shots. You look at the way he was driving the basketball, getting downhill, very decisive. I think this is the version of Gigi Jackson that the Grizzlies have been molding In a way, I feel like it's to take some of those things out of his game that they're not really big fans of. If you go back to the film from his rookie season, where he was playing a lot, it was a lot of dribbling. It was a lot of, uh, last second shot clock shots and things like that. But in this game, much more efficient. And the other thing that stood out to me when we want to talk about Gigi Jackson is the rebound. What makes Gigi Jackson a potential really good rebounder is he's a really good athlete. And at that point, you got one of the easiest prerequisites to being, a decent rebounder at least. You still have other areas that you have to work on to be a great rebounder, but Gigi Jackson can snag 5 rebounds just because he's 6'9", 220 plus, and he can jump higher than a lot of people. Now, with that being said, there also has to be a commitment. There also has to be an awareness. There also has to be a willingness. And he showed all of those things in this game. And we saw it. 9 rebounds from Gigi Jackson. I think that's a big part of his development. We've talked about it time and time again. The potential of having guys who can be really good wing rebounders takes this team to another level, because you accept the facts for what they are. Jaren Jackson Jr. is not going to be a great rebounder. I don't ever see it happening. It hasn't happened. We're 8 years in. It's not going to happen. When you get Zach Edey in there, you'll have that front court, that dominating physical presence who can be that strong rebounder. But having that guy on the wing, having the Cedric Cowards, having the Vince Williams, the John Conchars, and now if you add Gigi Jackson into that equation as a potential rebounder, I think that could be a really big development for this Grizzlies team as he continues to hone in on his rebound. The other thing is buying in on the defensive end. Gigi Jackson has to continue to show that. He's shown it now with the last 2 games. So we've seen, going back to the game against OKC, there were moments where Cedric Coward was in the game, and Gigi Jackson was the guy who was guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That stood out to me because I'm like, okay, he understands. Now, this is what I have to do to be on the court consistently for this team. I have to show the ability to be a two-way impact player who doesn't need to be this high volume offensive guy from the standpoint of dribbling the ball a lot. I can move the basketball. I can help the Grizzlies get into the next action, and I can show the talented, explosive offensive player that I can be while doing all of those things within the system. Now, with that being said, buying into the defense is a big development for Gigi Jackson. I thought he was sound in this game defensively, and I've said it a couple times in recent episodes, but I keep mentioning the numbers, so I just got to say it again. I'm not the biggest guy in the world on plus minus, but one thing that I will say you cannot argue about plus minus usually is more times than not, the guys who have the best plus minuses are usually good defenders. Like not just one game, but whole sample size. Particularly because if you're a really good defender, you're probably helping your team limit the other team from scoring. And if you're able to score on the other end, voila, you're going to get a positive plus minus. So the potential to be, a high level defender really impacts your ability to be a plus minus guy. And Gigi Jackson in this game, plus 12 for the Grizzlies, highest on the team. And I think in part that was because of his ability to be an impactful defender. So shout out to Gigi Jackson taking advantage of his moment. What does this mean going forward? I would like to see Gigi Jackson continue to get a solid run with this group. Now, we know when Cedric Coward comes back, he's going to be reinserted into the starting lineup, as he should be. Cedric Coward hasn't done anything to show that he shouldn't be starting. But we'll see what happens with Vince Williams' situation. John Conchar still out for a while. The Grizzlies could use another wing scorer. They could use a wing who can rebound the basketball. They could use a wing who can get out in transition like Gigi Jackson did in this game, get downhill, get to the cup. He showed a lot of things that, quite frankly, the Grizzlies just don't have on the roster. Gigi Jackson has some of those skills, so we'll see what that means going forward. But coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about some other takeaways from the game. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by PrizePicks. Listen up. The episode here is brought to you by PrizePicks because it's the holiday season. And if you know that one thing about the holiday seasons is it's the best time for sports because you got bowl games, you got the big basketball matchups, NFL, you got playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest way to get in on the daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. PrizePicks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule, creating a lineup that takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. Deposits and withdrawals are quick and easy, which keeps everything free flowing. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, where we'll continue to break down what happened in the Grizzlies' win over the Utah Jazz. There was a lot more to be happy about than just Gigi Jackson's performance. We started the show talking about Gigi Jackson's performance, and particularly because that was the most unique thing. Gigi Jackson hasn't played much this season, but he took advantage of the opportunity, and we'll be talking about him more as he continues to get the opportunities, and we'll see, what he does with those moments. But there were a lot of encouraging signs from this 137-128 win. One of the things that wasn't encouraging was the defense. Again, Utah just seemed to be a thorn in the Grizzlies' side on the defensive end. Both games now. You go back to the last game, Utah scored 130. At FedEx Forum was the game. Ja Morant said, man, we look soft on defense. In this game, Utah again puts up 128. They were missing Yusuf Nurkic. They were missing Lauri Markkanen, but it didn't matter. Keontae George, they got 24. Kyle Filipowski put up 25. They got Taylor Hendricks off the bench, career high 21. So a lot of encouraging signs for Utah on the offensive end and discouraging signs for the Grizzlies on the defensive end. But it was another strong night for Santi Aldama, who's put together recently in his last 3 games. He's had 2 games of over 30 points. First time in his career, he's reached 30 points at any point, and he's done it in 2 of his last 3 games. Career high tying 37 points. He scored 37 both times. 37 points in this game for Santi Aldama. Look, I think one of the things that you have to accept with Santi Aldama is there's going to be kind of some high variance in performances from time to time. Like you have a 37 points in this game, you might have 12 in the next game. But the highs are really good. 13 of 21 for the field, 7 3-pointers made, a career high there as well. And where Santi tends to stand out is he has the ability to impact the games in more ways than just scoring. You remember when Jaren Jackson Jr. Started that season injured, 2023, the Grizzlies were looking, who's going to be the guy? Who's going to be the guy to start in place of Jaren Jackson Jr.? They went with Santi because of the fact that not only because of what he adds as a scorer, he can do other things that really benefit winning. One of those things, 7 assists in this game. The Grizzlies had 41 assists as a team, one shy of tying the franchise record. 41 assists on 41 made baskets. I believe in the first half, 25 assists on 26 made baskets, and they scored 69 points to put it into a nice first half from the Memphis Grizzlies. So strong performance from Santi Aldama, and strong performance from several other guys as well. We're going to talk about all those guys and their performances, but we need to talk about the Everydayer Club first, because we thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And if you haven't already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. All you got to do is go to the Locked On Grizzlies link that we're going to put in the show notes after the show's over. Make sure you go take advantage of that opportunity over at the Locked On Everydayer Club. It's the #1 sports podcast out there. So appreciate you for tuning in. LockedOnPodcast.com/everydayer. Now, getting back to the Grizzlies-Utah Jazz matchup, another thing that stood out was getting Jaren Jackson Jr. back on track, right? We talked about how Jaren Jackson Jr., high variance in performances, but he's shown recently the ability to be closer to the dominant version. He had that letdown performance against OKC, and that was like, but he responded in this game against Utah. In this game, 9 of 16 shooting from the field. So only Santi in the starting lineup had more shots than Jaren Jackson Jr. for the right reason. And after the game against OKC, we were talking about every single starter having more shots than Jaren Jackson Jr. 21 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks. The blocks have started to go up for Jaren as of late. That's an encouraging sign because for a while they just haven't been there. But he's really getting more blocks lately. Some of them been on the ball, some of them off the ball, kind of in help defense. So a lot of mixed variance there with Jaren Jackson Jr. Cam Spencer, another double-double for him. Also a career high 13 assists as a part of that 41 assist effort for the team. Shout out to Cam Spencer, who's really been holding down that point guard position for the Grizzlies. Speaking of the point guard position, got to talk about the point guard position. Speaking of the point guard position for the Memphis Grizzlies, how about Javon Small? Javon Small wasn't supposed to be back for another week and a half, possibly. Smashed that timeline easily. Uh, he made his return from the turf toe injury. So the Grizzlies got back one of their natural point guards. It was the rookie. He played 12 minutes, didn't score, 0 of 4 from the field, 0 of 3 on three-pointers, but he finished with 7 assists, 2 rebounds, made some solid defensive plays. He had a steal. He had a couple deflections. I know that Pete Pranica and Brevin Knight were talking about, his ability, to play defense with his hands as well. So shout out to Javon Small, kind of taking advantage of that opportunity as well. The point guard position has needed some stability, and you got Cam Spencer. I think Cam Spencer is someone who the Grizzlies can somewhat rely on in a way as an option, at point guard with what he's shown over the last 2 to 3 weeks. But Vince Williams Jr. is out now in addition to all the other guys you're missing. The Grizzlies have needed someone to kind of step in and be that backup. And thank goodness they got that from Javon Small in this game. Production goes even beyond those guys. The Grizzlies have had a lot of guys that are just pretty much taking advantage of their opportunity right now. How about Jock Landale? Another game, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 6 of 10 shooting from the field. He did a really good job. He's kind of settled into that role as kind of a reserve big for this team. Olivier Maxence Prosser has been solid. I think that's really the word to put. Watching him perform over the last couple games, knocked down 2 3-pointers in this game, both from the corner. So he's kind of made a thing with that corner three-pointer. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 11 points off the bench as he's kind of, rounded into the role of a backup. So the Grizzlies have got good minutes as well from Christian Koloko. He's come off the bench, 4 rebounds in this game, 2 steals and a block. This is kind of why they brought him here, right? They are limited with the center options right now. You got Jock Landale, you got Jaren Jackson Jr., but you don't really have other center options. You don't want to put Santi at center because we see what he can be in that more perimeter-oriented role that he's playing right now. So shout out to Christian Koloko as well. He's taking advantage of that opportunity. So it was a strong performance from the Grizzlies on the offensive end. They need to do more defensively going forward, but they'll have some really good tests coming up forward, and we'll talk about some of those tests here coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies will be brought to you by GameTime. Look, during basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, the first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans wants to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing the screen or guessing what the tickets are really going to cost. And that's where GameTime comes in. The GameTime app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets. Fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the GameTime app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few tips. Seeing the view from your seat before buying those tickets makes it easy to see what you're getting yourself into. Prices include the fees up front, so the total cost is clear from the start. Features like zone deals help unlock great seats at even better value, whether it's in an NBA game or another live event. Everything is right there in one place. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the GameTime app today and get in on the action at GameTime. Make sure you go take advantage now on the GameTime app, where every single opportunity is available for you to go to any live event out there in the land. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, where we'll wrap up today's show talking about what's next for the Grizzlies, as my co-host Joe Molex has outlined and as I've outlined as well. This will be our last show of the week. As the holiday season is here, Joe will be with his family. I'm going to be all over the place with my family, and we're going to enjoy the holiday season. So we'll be back with more coverage of Locked On Grizzlies starting the beginning of next week. So in that time, 2 games will take place. The Grizzlies will play against the Milwaukee Bucks. Then they'll play against the Washington Wizards. And then we'll be back before the game that comes after that. But there's a lot of things that can happen in this stretch. Because right now, the Grizzlies are 14-16. And I remember we talked about the idea before that last game, I believe it was against the Wizards. Can the Grizzlies get to 500? That was like a big talking point. Can the Grizzlies get to 500? And they didn't. They suffered a surprising loss. Then on top of that, they lost again, to the OKC Thunder. So the Grizzlies didn't get to 500. So we're not going to talk about the Grizzlies getting to 500 after games against the Bucks and the Wizards. But I will say this. It should be. When we get back here on Monday, the Grizzlies should be 500. Now, with that being said, what does this next stretch look like for Memphis? Number one, we got to start with Morant. What's next? Is he going to play? Will he continue to be out? Here's kind of my assessment of the situation right now. I do believe that Ja will be back by the end of the week. We'll see whether that's the game against Milwaukee on the 26th or the game against the Washington Wizards on the 28th. But I do have a good, I feel like he'll be back. Morant has been considered day-to-day now for a few days. He's worked out before the games, so he's getting the work in. He's testing out that ankle, and I think there's a good chance we'll see him over the next couple games. So again, with Cam Spencer, now you can add in Morant. Now you have Javon Small, and now you're starting to see, okay, that point guard position is starting to settle in a little bit with better options. And now you're just hopeful to get to some of those wings back. We'll see what happens again with Cedric Coward, Vince Williams Jr., and those guys in their recovery processes in their return to play as well. The other thing that we'll talk about is an upcoming game against the Milwaukee Bucks on after Christmas. They play the Bucks the day after Christmas on December 26th. And when people hear the Bucks, they think Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's what I think. That's what most people should think. And Giannis Antetokounmpo has not played since December 3rd. That's when he suffered a calf strain. He was listed as out. He should return in 2 to 4 weeks at the time. So if you're looking down at your calendar, it's been 3 weeks. So he's right in the middle of that return to play, area or whatever you want to call it. He was spotted at a practice on last Saturday. So he's been getting a little work in with this team. So I say all that to say it's very realistic that Giannis Antetokounmpo could make his return for the Milwaukee Bucks in this game. I'll have the coverage over, on X at Damichael C, also in the commercial appeal. So make sure you take it, go over there, take advantage of those as well, because we'll have it covered. We won't be here on Locked On Grizzlies the rest of the week, but I'll still be with you, the commercial appeal, and over on X as well. So we'll continue to monitor the Giannis Antetokounmpo situation, because that changes everything in terms of how the Grizzlies need to plan for that game. Ryan Rollins, Kevin Porter Jr., Miles Turner, all talented players, completely different team when you have Giannis Antetokounmpo. When Giannis went out in that game against the Pistons, the Bucks lost 5 of their next 6 games. They lost 3 in a row before beating the Indiana Pacers on yesterday. So just to give you an idea of where that team is, I believe it's 12-18 now, and losing 5 of their last 6 before beating the Pacers. So 2-5 in their last 7 games overall. But basically, it's just not a good team without Giannis, and a decent team at best with him. So again, a very good opportunity for the Grizzlies to continue their winning ways in that matchup. Then you get another matchup against the Washington Wizards, right? We saw what the Wizards did against the Grizzlies. Now you come back into this next matchup, potentially a healthier team. You should get a couple more bodies back. Should have a better situation at point guard. This is another game that's very winnable for the Memphis Grizzlies in all the ways that we just mentioned with some of these guys as well. So you're getting closer to getting a bunch of different guys back, right? Morant. We'll see what happens with the Cedric Coward situation, Vince Williams Jr., but also Ty Jerome. Do not forget him. Ty Jerome is slowly working his way back. I wouldn't consider him far from making his return for the Memphis Grizzlies as well. But this is an interesting stretch here for Memphis. You consider where the team is right now, 14-16 through the first 30 games. My co-host Joe Mullinax likes to say, "Call me at Christmas," right? We don't get him on this episode, so we'll get his thoughts after Christmas, because he says, "Call me at Christmas," basically saying at Christmas we'll get a good idea of what this team is, and that was a good perspective to have for this season in general, because we saw the Grizzlies get off to a 4-11 start, right? First 15 games of the season, 4-11, and at that point it was like, this ain't gonna go well. Pack it up. This team is cooked. I mean, that's just how it was looking. Like, there was no identity being formed, and then Zach Edey returns, gives you that boost. A couple other things start to go in your direction, even with all of the injuries. A weaker schedule, the Grizzlies take advantage of it, go 10-5 over the next stretch of games, and then boom, now you're 2 games under 500 with 2 very winnable games coming up. So if you tell me, hey, Damichael, I'm calling you at Christmas, what do you think about this team? I think this team has a very realistic chance to make the playoffs after the slow start that it got off to. If you look at the standings right now in the Western Conference, the Grizzlies are the 9th seed. They're 1 game behind the Golden State Warriors, who are at 8. It just always feels like those Grizzlies and Warriors are right there with each other. It's almost like they got magnets to just put them in the same area where they always end up playing each other in the postseason. We saw it last year. We saw it 2020. Was it 2022? We saw it the year before that, 2021. They always end up playing each other. But right now, the Suns are the 7th seed. They have a 3-game advantage, 2.5 games over the Grizzlies. The Warriors are the 8th seed. The Grizzlies are the 9th seed. They have 2 games over the 10th seed, which is the Portland Trailblazers. If you're one of those people saying, no, we got to get into the top 6, that's going to be hard to do. The top 6 right now is the Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets, Lakers, Timberwolves. The Rockets are the 6th seed right now at 17-9. The Grizzlies are essentially 5 games back from the Houston Rockets at this point. So that's going to be a tough team to catch overall. But we'll see, how that process continues to unfold for the Grizzlies. I think right now the goal should be trying to get to 7. You're a couple games behind the Phoenix Suns. You're 1 game behind the Warriors. You beat the Suns earlier this season. You lost to the Warriors, but again, you didn't have a couple guys, so you'll get another chance, another couple chances to play them. Those chances will come in Golden State, but we'll see what the Grizzlies can do with those opportunities. Thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen on today. Make sure you subscribe and follow the Locked On Grizzlies podcast for all your latest updates. If you need a last-minute holiday gift, or someone keep asking, what do you want for Christmas? You're like, I don't know. Just make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club, ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through the custom link that we're going to put in the show notes. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA. Make sure you go take advantage of that. But thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Again, this will be our last show until next Monday. So appreciate you guys for tuning in with me on today. But until then, remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.